Hey everybody, welcome back to the Freak Show. I have my special guest Daniel here with me again today, and what we are going to be talking about is men's mental awareness. All right? It's the month of June. It's Men's Mental Awareness Month, and it's something that people don't really discuss. The media doesn't really talk much about it, and I feel like this time and age, we need to stop kind of fighting for which gender is better. You know, like women's mental health is more important than men's, and vice versa, right? Us as a people, I think we need to come together and work together to help each other out. All right? So, starting off this podcast, Daniel, you are up with some statistics that you actually grabbed for us tonight. Can you give us a little rundown on all that?
Yeah, first of all, Devin, I want to say thanks for having me back, man. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Um, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about men's mental health with you. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I agree. It's not talked about enough, and we definitely need to put more focus on men's mental health because I think the more we talk about it, these stories that we're about to share and these facts, like someone out there, one person could see this, watch this, and maybe it could change their life, or let them go get help.
Yeah.
So some of the stats that I found fascinating, and it's a focus on men specifically because it is Men's Mental Health Month. But the first one is there's one suicide in the United States every 11 minutes. And men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. Now, 50% of the world population, about 50.42, is men. So a little over half the population are males, but 80% of the total population that commit suicide are men.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. It's staggering, right? And these numbers are from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. The stats are current as of 2021. And I'm sure those numbers, they've probably fluctuated a little in the last 2 years, but 80%, right, of suicides are men. And then if we connect that to the military, right, in 2020, mental health disorders accounted for the largest number of hospital bed stays in the military, and that's all branches. And then the second highest number for like a soldier to go in and seek any kind of medical attention, the second highest reason for medical help in general was for mental health disorders. So, you think going to sick hall because your foot hurts or you have a cough, all the things that we go get help for in general, mental health was the second highest number. And again, the number one reason that people spent time in a hospital. Staggering numbers, right? And then if we get down to the branch specific details, what branch do you think, Devin, has the highest rate of mental health disorders?
I'm going to guess the Army since there's a lot more of us than anyone else. I'm probably wrong.
No,
I
you're
am
absolutely
correct. Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, the Army has the highest rate of mental health disorders, and that is per capita, and it's also overall percentage. So taking into consideration like the number of personnel in every branch, the percentage of those active personnel, and this is active duty only, so we're not considering reserves and National Guard into these numbers, but I'm really interested to see what those numbers actually look like as well. But overall percentages, the Army has the highest percentage for mental health disorders. And then the highest out of the disorders that are diagnosable is adjustment disorder,
Okay.
followed by depression, followed by anxiety. And then PTSD is on that list. But the PTSD numbers, it's 7% of all veterans across all branches. So, 7 in 100 of all veterans will at some point in their lifetime be diagnosed and treated for PTSD.
And all those numbers are still very high. And like we were
Yeah,
talking, like you were discussing too, I think the big one we should focus on today is talking about actual like depression.
yeah,
I wrote down a couple notes right here, and just some of them, like the top what's it called, lists of why men are depressed. It starts off with physical health problems, relationship problems, employment problems, social isolation, pregnancy and birth of a baby, and drug and alcohol abuse.
Mhm.
I think this is just my opinion right now, but I think the
Yeah.
biggest ones that have ever affected me and the people that I know are the physical health problems, relationship problems, and drug and alcohol abuse.
Mhm.
Um, can you relate at any time to any of the ones that I said off the list, or any of the top three that
Yeah.
I that I said?
Yeah, man, absolutely. I've struggled with, alcohol use due to physical fitness, due to, relationship issues, and then also like work stressors. Um, the first time actually that depression hit me really hard was 2015. So 8 years ago, I was in South Korea. I was a fairly new sergeant, E5, and I was probably 4 months into the rotation over there at Camp Casey, Camp Hovey, and I got a phone call that a very close friend of mine committed suicide. And this was a guy I went to OSET with at Fort Knox. We went to Iraq together. Um, we got promoted to sergeant together. We did a lot together at Fort Hood before he PCS'd. And then you know how the army kind of gets, people leave, and then you tend to lose touch because everybody's got their stuff going on, their personal lives, their work, and I just kind of lost contact with him for about a year or so. And then I got a phone call from a mutual friend that told me what happened, and I remember being told that, and I was in my barracks room by myself, and it brought up, like, his death brought up the memories of other guys, guys we lost, in Iraq and Afghanistan, other friends and battle buddies that have committed suicide and lost the fight to their demons, and it all just compounded. And that was the first time I experienced a panic attack, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. I just remember, like, this doesn't feel okay. My heart was pounding. I was sweating. I physically felt paralyzed. Like I was sitting on my floor against my wall. I couldn't move. And I, instead of going to get help, I chose to self medicate, and I used alcohol as a coping mechanism, and which it is. It's not a healthy one,
Yeah, it's
but
definitely not.
it is a mechanism.
Yeah.
And I use that as my mechanism, and I was drinking myself to sleep on a regular basis for a lot longer than I should have been. And it took me some time, man, and really it started to, like, it always has trickle down effects, right? Like the second and third order effects of me becoming an alcoholic to deal with my depression and anxiety resulted in relationship issues. So now I'm deployed, I'm already away. Now I'm having relationship issues because I'm drinking too much and because I'm isolating. Like I was doing this alone. Like I didn't tell anyone,
Yeah.
right? I was going to work and functioning every day at work, doing my job as a team leader, and then going back to my room and drinking until I passed out, and then standing in 6:30 PT formation and doing it all again.
Yeah.
So no one really knew, and then I was struggling with my relationship issue at home, and communication. I just wasn't communicating about anything. I didn't want to talk about it, right? I just didn't want to talk about it. And finally, like, after getting really close to losing, my job, my family, I realized, like, I need to go talk to someone. And I went and I seen EBH, which is the embedded behavioral health, which is what we call it in the Army. But I know across the branches there's BH, and there's other forms of clinical therapy. But it was really eye opening, and it really showed me, that the stigma of mental health, specifically the stigma in the military of like, if you go get help, you're a pussy, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that one
Oh yeah,
before?
all the time.
If you go get help, you're a bitch. If you go get help, you're weak. Like, you don't need help. You just need to be a man and suck it up. You've heard that one before,
One
right?
all the time.
And I'm guilty of saying that one before, to be fully transparent, um, because it was said to me, you know, as a young 19, 20 something, in the army. So, like, those stigmas were quickly crushed, when I sat down and got some one-on-one with another human being, um, and just was able to have a conversation. Just being able to talk to someone that has the tools, and the experience to give you like productive feedback is really, for me personally, like, my favorite part, about going there and about getting that kind of help. And there's other things they do too. I mean, if the therapy doesn't work for you one on one, you can do group therapy sessions. They offer, outpatient services, community resources, and there's medication. You could get a diagnosis, for multiple things. I have buddies that learn that they had personality disorders, just from going and doing some therapy because they were depressed, and then come to find out, like, oh, I have antisocial personality disorder. That's the case, sometimes. So, but whatever you end up getting from it, like it's something that you definitely like should do, because doing what I did, like, if I continued down that path, like, I would have self-destructed,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I'm glad you were able to kind of use that opportunity to go seek that help and do a
Mm,
complete change in like your life and continue moving on in the right direction and not become literally a statistic to
yes,
mental health. I'm
yes.
gonna share a story too. Mine happened last year in August. I was actually, you probably saw the picture on Facebook with my big boot on my leg.
Yeah, I did.
I
I was like,
ended
what the
up,
hell happened?
I was running in the morning and I snapped my ankle on the side of the road. And
Mhm,
I got shipped to the hospital. And when they did all their scans and they checked it out, it was a grade 2 ankle sprain.
mhm,
And the doctor was just like, your buddy should have just curb stomped your ankle and broke it because it would have healed faster than this sprain. And I was like, what does that
mhm,
mean? It's like, well, instead of like, you know 4 months being out, you're looking at 6 to 8 months being out.
mhm,
um and I was in fairly decent shape. But the second that I got placed in crutches and I was walking around in a boot for a month, 2 months, I just kind of, I wasn't able to really exercise. It was hurting to walk. I was put on desk duty at work. I wasn't, moving as much as I should. And with the lack of, exercise and being active, I started gaining a bunch of weight.
mhm.
And that weight gain, that unhealthy diet really affected my mental health. Um, I started kind of getting a little bit, depressed inside. And I just kind of found myself, just isolating myself from each other, or not from each other, but from people and everything. I would just see people at work, and I was just really not feeling great inside. Um, and about a month and a half after the injury, I got enrolled into physical therapy, and I started, working through this. And I'm just like, I was talking to everyone at the place I went, and they're like, we're going to start you off with these exercises, but if you go to the gym, you got to keep in mind you can't do anything with your ankle. You can only do work with the bands, and if there's a machine you can sit on that doesn't affect your ankle, you can do it, but that really like limits everything. And I actually reached out, to a couple people, kind of talked with them. I'd probably shot you a message and been like, yeah, I'm fucked up, but like, it's really, I really found myself reaching out through social media, talking
Mhm.
to close friends that I've been friends with for years and some that I haven't talked with, just to talk with them. And, that kind of really helped me out.
Yeah.
Um, 7 months later, after I fully healed, I ended up being in the gym. I'm completely active now and my mindset's completely different. And I can really relate to the physical health problems affecting my mental health in a large aspect of the grand scheme of like the talk about depression. And it's very true too, you know, because people at work be like, "Oh, you're walking around with a boot on, like what a bitch!" Like, yes,
Yeah.
like
Like,
sorry
oh,
that I'm sorry that
we got
there's like,
we got a profile warrior over here.
yeah, it's like, oh, you just wanted to get out of the ruck 2 months from now. It's like, no.
Yeah. He doesn't want to take the ACFT.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was like,
All
okay, come on now, and they're like, oh yeah, like whatever. But you know, reverting back to men's mental health, it is a very undiscussed topic. This entire month on Facebook and Instagram, I have not seen a single post on anything, and nothing has been brought up at work or nothing. I don't see anything. But any other month, there's flyers. People are walking on the street, handing me shit. Like it's just, you know, it's something. And I hope, you know, the right person sees this, shares it, and it just continues to get shared. And you know, I want to thank you again for reaching out, telling me your story, listening to mine, you know, and I think is there anything you want to say? One last thing that you want to speak on behalf of men's mental health?
Yeah, just anybody watching this, and male or female, right? If you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with alcohol or substance abuse, if you're struggling with just getting out of bed in the morning, if you're struggling with, you know, negative thoughts that just won't go away and they're affecting you on a daily basis, like struggling with any of those things, anything else, you just don't feel like yourself, like talk to someone, please. Men, women, children, doesn't matter. Like if you need help, like get help. Please don't become a statistic.
All right. This is Devin Eisert. Daniel, thank you for stopping by the Freak Show.
Devin, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers.